red dust and golden wings. The final journal of Brother Aurelian, 9th Legion Gene Line. A Life as POV Chronicle. Part 1. The Wound and the World. Vox recording. Activated. Timestamp. Unknown. Chrono desynchronization detected. Location. Agri World designation. Redacted. Surface ruin, Sigma 9. Status. Primary heart offline. Secondary heart failing. Blood filters saturated. Larraman cell. Function 4%. Note: if you find this helm, extract progenoids, catalog personal effects, and forward this record to the Reclusium. If corruption has taken my voice, erase the file. The Emperor deserves better sound. The Wound and the World. It is strange how still the world becomes when the killing is over. The air is heavy, not with noise, but with expectation, as if the soil itself waits to see which of us will be the last to exhale. I am lying among the ruins of what was once a manufactorum sprawl. The ground is still warm from bombardment. My armor has cracked at the hips, molten ceramite fused with bone. My blood is leaking into the ash, the red of Bel meeting the grey of everything else. The sky above is a dim wound, stormlight trapped behind burned clouds. No sun, no stars, just a smear of colour that might once have been blue. My helm's vox hisses with static. Every so often it catches a frequency, half a syllable of liturgy or the dying gasp of a reactor still trying to believe it matters. I cannot move my legs. I cannot feel my arms beyond the hum of failing servos. But I can hear. I can remember. There is an old superstition among our kind. When a blood angel dies, he relives every memory that made him beautiful. If that is true, then perhaps the Emperor grants me this silence not as punishment, but as mercy, a cathedral of stillness where I may record my life before it fades completely. The world smells of ozone and promethium. There is another scent beneath it, iron and something sweet. The sweetness is mine. I laugh softly, though the sound is distorted through the vox. So much of me has been replaced by machine that my death will require 3 separate rites. One for the man, one for the gene, one for the iron. I look to my left. A fallen brother lies beside me, his armor caved in, his jump pack sheared clean through. His blood has mixed with mine, our colors merging, 2 shades of devotion drying into one. His name, stenciled across his shoulder plate, is Raphaniel. I knew him once. I think he taught me how to clean a bolter with reverence, as if touching relics. He does not move now, but his face is serene behind the shattered visor. A good death, perhaps. We say that a lot, a good death. As if any death, when it comes, has patience for adjectives. The land raider that carried us into the heart of this city lies behind me, a burned skeleton of blessed steel. The machine spirit's last words still echo in my vox, static syllables begging forgiveness. I whispered a benediction before the fire reached its core. Machines die like saints, loudly but with conviction. The humans we came to save are gone. The cult that consumed them burned the manufactorum first, as if purity could be found in annihilation. I suppose they were half right. When I try to move, my armor protests. Warning glyphs flash across my helm's display. Spinal coupling, disengaged. Larraman reservoir, depleted. Secondary heart, fibrillation. My gene-wrought body is performing the same miracle it has for 3 centuries, pretending to be invincible. Only now, the pretense is running out of power. Somewhere far above, I can still hear the fleet. Their orbital bombardment ended hours ago, but the echo travels through the ionized air like ghosts hammering on a cathedral door. It occurs to me that this may be the last sound I ever hear that is not my own. So I speak, not for myself, but for the one who will retrieve this helm, or for the machine spirit that will one day archive it. My words will be the offering I leave behind, the one thing the void cannot digest. I am Brother Aurelian of the Second Company, Blood Angels, born Cassiel, son of Baal's dust, reborn by Sanguinius blood, forged by war, unmade by duty. I will tell you of Baal, and of what it means to live too long for glory and too short for peace. I will tell you of beauty and the price we paid to remember it. And I will tell you how a son of angels learns to die like a man. The desert that dreamed of wings. Before the red armor, before the gene seed, before the prayers, there was the desert. Baal Secundus, a graveyard pretending to be a planet. Its sand was glass ground fine, its air poisonous to most, its people harder than either. We lived in wrecks, the hollow bones of ships that had fallen during the Dark Age. We scavenged the relics of dead civilizations and called them homes. I was a child of that sand. My mother died naming me Cassiel. My father never existed long enough to matter. Every year the angels descended from the sky. They came in crimson dropships that gleamed like blood made holy. We called them Sanguinius's hunters. They took the strongest, the fastest, the ones who dreamed of flight. I dreamed of water, not wings. But they took me anyway. The apothecary who examined me had eyes the color of Baal's moons, pale gold, unblinking. He pressed a finger to my chest, feeling the beat of a heart that didn't yet know how to hate. "You listen," he said. "That's what we need." I did not understand. I only nodded, because when angels speak, comprehension is optional. The shuttle ride off Baal felt like theft. I looked out at the desert as it fell away beneath me and thought, the planet is holding its breath. Even now I sometimes dream of that last exhale. The storm lifting, the sand whispering, "Go." The transformation was agony, but it was a holy agony. They replaced my blood with something luminous. They tore me apart and made me symmetrical. The osmodula stretched my bones until I felt taller than the stars. The biscopea filled my muscles with memory that wasn't mine. The Laraman organ learned to sing hymns to clotting. The pain never truly ends. It just becomes another kind of silence you learn to live inside. When I first donned the red armor, I expected to feel like a god. Instead, I felt like a cage that had been painted to resemble one. The chaplain said, "Your suffering is a prayer the galaxy can hear." He was right. Every wound since has been a verse in that unending song. The taste of war. The first world I fought on was called Sithis Tertius. It smelled of oil and salt, its seas metallic, its sky bruised by industry. Rebellion had spread through the manufactoria like rot. We dropped in from the atmosphere, fire trailing behind us like ribbons. My jump pack screamed hymns of acceleration. The first impact shattered a heretic's bones beneath my boots. He looked up at me and whispered something like a prayer. I think he mistook me for the God who had come to judge him. Perhaps he was right. We fought for 17 days through corridors that stank of machine oil and despair. The heretics welded statues of themselves into the walls. They called it immortality. We called it target practice. But what stays with me is not the battle. It's the quiet afterward. The silence that seeped into every room once the shooting stopped. The smell of blood cooling on the walls. The realization that every sound my armor made, every breath, every servo whir, was the only proof I was still alive. There is a peculiar kind of fatigue that comes after victory. It's not relief. It's emptiness shaped like relief. We called it the warrior's quiet. It's when you start to notice the small things, how your armor fits, how your tongue sticks to the roof of your mouth, how the bodies of your enemies look exactly like your own once the helmets are gone. That was when I began to understand what the chaplains mean when they say, beauty is a weapon. Because when you see too much ugliness, you need something beautiful to point it toward, or you go mad. We chose to paint. Between campaigns, we painted murals on the walls of our barracks. Wings, suns, angels, the faces of brothers already gone. We were warriors, yes, but also artists desperate for proof that creation still existed somewhere inside destruction. My first mural was of Baal. Not the real one, but the way I wanted to remember it. Red dunes under a gold sky. A single shadow in the distance wearing wings of fire. The paint was made from ash and promethium oil. It burned slightly when touched. I didn't mind. The thirst and the mirror. The first time I felt the thirst was not on the battlefield. It was in prayer. We were aboard the Crimson Oath, en route to the front. The sanguinary priest had gathered us for the rite of reflection. The red grail was passed, each brother taking a measured sip, a drop of Sanguinius blood, sacred and dangerous. When it reached me, I drank, and for a heartbeat I saw everything. Baal burning under twin suns, Sanguinius falling with wings unfurled, the Emperor weeping molten light, my own face, centuries from now, painted on a cathedral wall as something both holy and monstrous. Then the vision snapped. The taste lingered, copper and divinity. The priest's eyes met mine. He knew. He always knows when one of us tastes more than he should. He placed a hand on my pauldron and whispered, "Do not chase it. It will come again when you least desire it." He was right. Even now, as I lie here dying, I feel the thirst coil behind my ribs, a relic of hunger pretending to be memory. It whispers, "Drink and live one more hour." But I will not. There are worse deaths than this. Dying thirsty is the only honest one we are allowed. Vox record continues. Audio stabilized at 42% integrity. The company. If the blood angels are a choir, then the company is its chord. Each voice distinct, each note a promise that someone will strike true where another falters. I remember our muster before the campaign of Carpathia Reach. Second company stood upon the basalt parade ground, armor newly anointed, wings etched bright upon each pauldron. The dawn light caught us and turned the whole line into fire. Captain Rathaniel spoke. His vox cracked from age and reverence both. "Brothers," he said, "we are not sent to win. We are sent to remind the galaxy what grace looks like when it bleeds." We answered with the rite of the chalice. One beat of the heart, one exhale, one step forward. The Thunderhawk decks shook with our unity. They called me a marksman then. I carried an Infernus pistol and a sword older than my memory. I named the blade Solace, because every time it cut, something painful stopped making sense. Rathaniel. He was the best of us, a veteran of the old crusades, a poet hiding in plate. He kept a tiny scrap of parchment tucked behind his gorget, a line from Sanguinius's sermon on flight. "To rise is pain," repeated beautifully. He used to polish his armor until it shone enough to shame the sun. When I asked why, he said, "Because I want the enemy to see himself coming." He taught me how to enter battle as if attending mass, calm, precise, aware of every breath as liturgy. And he taught me laughter, something most Astartes forget. He laughed at the absurdity of eternity, the idea that a creature made for killing could live long enough to learn compassion. Rathaniel once told me, "When you kill Aurelian, close their eyes." They would have done the same for you, had they remembered how. I close his eyes now, here in the ash beside me. He lies silent, the wound at his chest glowing faintly with leaking promethium. In death his smile stayed. Some victories cannot be recorded, only witnessed. The Choir of Blood. After Carpathia, we were sent to the Ecliptic Forges. The Mechanicum there had turned heretic, building engines with souls, but no prayers. Our assault was sung before it began. 10,000 serfs lined the deck, chanting the litany of descent. The thunderhawks fell like hymnal notes, each impact a syllable in a psalm only Sanguinius could finish. The forge was a labyrinth of light and screaming pistons. We moved through it as dancers, blades weaving flame, jump packs whispering wind. Bolter fire echoed like cathedral bells. When my pistol spoke, it spoke in tongues of purification. We reached the central foundry, an altar of molten steel. The heretic Magos waited, his flesh a rosary of wires. He welcomed us as prophets. Then he detonated half the chamber to prove devotion. I woke beneath a pile of shattered servitors. My armor bled coolant. My ears rang with ghosts. Raphaniel found me, lifted me with one arm. "You are not broken," he said, "only unfinished." Later, in the Medici hold, the sanguinary priest poured the blood of our father into a chalice and bade us drink. We did. And for a moment, I believed the galaxy might forgive us for surviving. Brotherhood. We do not speak often, we angels. Words are luxuries between battles. But gestures, those are our scripture. A hand on a pauldron. I am here. A nod before the charge. If I fall, finish the verse. A silent toast after victory. We lived. Therefore we owe. I remember Brother Enoch, massive even for our kind, whose laughter could shake a drop bay. He collected enemy blades, not as trophies, but as apologies. Before each battle he would place one on the deck, mutter a benediction, and say, "May one less blade be raised against us today." It rarely worked, but the faith mattered. I remember novitiate Iason, whose armor still smelled of primer. He would hum during maintenance, a tune from some Baalite lullaby. Once, when the chaplain scolded him for irreverence, Raphaniel intervened. "Let him sing," he said. "Even angels need a heartbeat." That night, Iason painted tiny wings on every shell of his bolt gun. He said he wanted the bullets to know which way to fly. He was torn apart by a plasma burst 2 days later. The recovered shells were still warm, still shining. Faith and doubt. You cannot serve 3 centuries without courting heresy of thought. The Imperium is vast, but its mercy is not. There are worlds that bow to us as gods, and worlds that curse us as tyrants. Both are correct. The first time I doubted was after the pacification of Krios Delta. The rebels surrendered. Command ordered extermination. The chaplain recited the doctrine of cleansing. We fired. I watched a woman clutching her child as fire consumed her. Through the heat haze, her face did not plead. It understood. I remember thinking, she looks like my mother might have, had she lived long enough to be condemned. Afterward, I scraped soot from my armor until dawn, whispering the apology I was not allowed to record. The next day I painted a single tear on my pauldron. Raphaniel saw it and said nothing. That silence was the kindest absolution I ever received. The curse of wings. The red thirst, the black rage. 2 shadows that walk before every blood angel. When the thirst rises, you taste iron where there is none. You hear heartbeats as music. You smell faith and hunger mixed, indistinguishable. When the rage takes a brother, it is merciful only in its swiftness. His eyes go black. He sees the Horus heresy replaying behind his lids. He fights ghosts until the body fails. We restrain them gently for a while. Then the chaplain whispers, "The canticle of the fallen," and they charge into the enemy one final time. We call it redemption. It feels like euthanasia dressed in gold. I feared it would take me someday. Now, lying broken on this ruined world, I almost wish it had. Better to die screaming in memory than whispering in dust. But perhaps the Emperor chose this quieter martyrdom, so I might leave testimony instead of carnage. Dream of the Angel. There was a knight aboard the Crimson Oath when I saw him. Not in vision, not in fever, he was there. Sanguinius stood at the viewport, looking down at a world still burning from orbit. His armor was light itself, his wings folded as if ashamed. "Do you think them worth saving?" I asked. He turned, and his eyes, by the throne, those eyes, were full of every war we have ever fought, and every sunrise we've forgotten to watch. "Salvation is not a question of worth," he said. "It is a question of persistence." I woke with tears dried to the inside of my helm. The Vox recorded nothing, but my soul still echoes with his answer. The unfinished painting. Between wars, we still painted. Raphaniel favored golds and crimsons. Enoch etched scripture into armor plates with the tip of his knife. I worked in grey, ash mixed with pigment from fallen banners. Once I tried to paint Sanguinius. I failed. The face would not hold, the light always wrong. I realized then why the statues never look alike. He appears differently to every sun, because each of us remembers him through our own wounds. That half-finished mural still waits somewhere aboard the Crimson Oath. Perhaps a neophyte will find it one day and think it deliberate, the unfinished as devotion. He will be half right. The long quiet before the end. My Vox picks up a faint signal, heartbeat patterns from orbit. Could be the fleet, could be the dead dreaming, I cannot tell. The pain comes in tides now, rhythmic as sermons. My autosenses flicker, my vision narrows to a red tunnel. Still I dictate, because memory, once spoken, is harder to kill. If I had another life, I would spend it building instead of burning. Perhaps sculpting wings for children who will never see Baal. Perhaps teaching mortals that art is not luxury, but confession. But we are what we were made for, and I was made for war. All I can do now is make my dying precise. Data break, signal loss 8 sec, reconnect successful. I feel the dust settling on my armor. It is redder than before. Perhaps Baal reaches across the void to claim her son. Raphaniel's body cools beside me, and the wind writes eulogies we cannot hear. If this is the prelude to death, it is a gentle one. Gentleness is the rarest miracle of all. The chaplain's lantern. The first time I met Chaplain Melovian, he carried a lantern instead of a crozius. It was a relic lamp from Baal Secundus, its glass dark with the smoke of 1,000 battlefield vigils. He held it high in the Medica gloom and said, "Aurelian, when you cannot see the path, carry light. When light fails, carry memory. When memory fails, carry each other." I thought it a metaphor then. On Belos Reach, when the ash storms swallowed both moons, and our auspex returned only static and regret, Melovian walked ahead with that lantern. The wind bent around him. Men followed flame as if it were gravity. Later, in the Chapel of Tears aboard the Crimson Oath, he taught me how to knot prayer cords with gauntleted fingers. "Penitence is patience repeated," he said, tightening the final loop with a motion so gentle I barely felt it bite my wrist. I tied that same cord around my vambrace before every drop, a small ring of red that kept my hand steady when the thirst tested it. 2 hours ago, I burned it for warmth. The fire lasted 3 breaths. It smelled like old wax and iron. The sanguinary priests. The priests are our alchemists of sorrow. They carry the blood of our Father in crystal ampulli and find poetry in hemoglobin counts. Brother Confessor Thassus could read a man's doubts by the way he set down a chalice. Brother Adera would hum under his breath while changing a feed line, as if reassuring the vein itself. In a campaign far rimward, a shell burst during the rite of the chalice and flung shrapnel through half our number. Thassus did not flinch. He finished the rite over the screams, then waded into the blood with his hands bare, sealing arteries by pressure, murmuring the litany of flow in Barlight cant. "Return," he whispered to every racing heartbeat. "Return." I owe him my trigger finger. A shard had lodged against the tendon. He teased it free and sutured with thread so fine I could not see it. Afterward, he put the bloody sliver in my palm. "Keep it," he said, "a reminder that what enters you isn't always yours to keep." I wore it on a thong around my neck until it cut me in my sleep. Then I asked Raphaniel to press it into the pommel of solace. Steel remembers better than flesh. Thassus died on Lyriel's gate under a tide of chitin and hunger. He bled with exquisite neatness, as if even in death he refused a mess. We recovered his ampulla intact. The priest who followed, quiet, fox-eyed, named Seph, never filled it quite as full. He said it was custom. I think it was grief. The choir cracks. Before a choir shatters, you hear the hairline fracture. One voice too bright, another late, one breath stolen. Second company began to crack on Vraxil Theta, a moon of frost-veined cobalt that sang when the wind went southerly. We were hunting a splinter warband, calling itself the Regretless, Black Legion remnants with a taste for theatrics. They ambushed a refugee convoy under the shadow of a defunct orbital elevator and broadcast the killings over open vox. Children wept in every home along the belt. Anger is a clean blade. Cruelty rusts it. Our strike was surgical. Assault squads to stick the flanks. Devastators to unroof their gun nests. Raphaniel's golden helm at the point. We fell upon them like a thunderhead. The first minutes were beautiful. Then Brother Enoch saw the enemy champion wearing a cloak of wings, human scapulars, boiled and pinned, dyed red. The sight tipped him over an edge we pretend is far away and always find beneath our heels. He roared, voice breaking into a child's, and hit their line like a meteor. He did not slow when his knee actuator blew, did not slow when the chain fist took his pauldron, did not slow when a melter charge removed his faceplate and half the face. He laughed. It echoed. We vomited speed to catch him. He killed 9 men who deserved it, and 3 who were only near. We could not reach him before he reached himself. That dark room in a Baylite hive where a boy starved with his sister and learned that meat is a kind of prayer. Enoch died with a smile. I closed his eyes. After the field was clear, Malovian stood among the bodies and said, "We will say he fell to the foe. We will not name the foe inside." Raphaniel nodded once. The company dispersed, steps too careful. Fractures widened in the quiet. The red thirst, litany of admission. I have avoided this page, but if a confession is not complete, it is rehearsal. Litany of admission. When the thirst rose in me the first time, it arrived like a kindness. I had fought 3 hours without water on a salt world. My tongue was a stone and my lips were torn maps. Then a taste, sweet copper, sun warm. Strength poured up my arms. I felt every target's pulse as a metronome. I felt my ancestors singing in the marrow. I thought, this is how we are supposed to be. On the second rise, I heard the drumbeat underneath bolter fire. Hearts, hearts, and my vision tunneled to the color we named our legion for. I cut an iron warrior down and reached without thinking, thumbed his helm's latch, bared the face. I do not know if I would have bitten him. Brother Iason's small hand, new armor, caught my wrist. He shook his head once, a child telling a child no. On the third rise, Melovian stood before me with his lantern and spoke my human name, the one I had not heard since Baal. Arul. The thirst recoiled like an animal scalded. I fell to my knees and retched blood I had not drunk. The chaplain set the lantern between us and waited while I remembered how to be quiet. After, in the chapel of tears, he said, "Do not mistake hunger for sin. Hunger is proof you deserve to eat. Sin is stealing another's last meal." I asked him what we do when famine is ordained by our making. He said, "We share. It is easier to share on full stomachs. We are rarely full." The death company, procession. They are the most beautiful of us. You will say that is perverse. You have not watched them assemble. When the black rage unbars a brother's mind and the echo of the heresy becomes a storm, we fit them with sable armor filigreed like reliquaries. Their jump packs whisper louder than ours, as if eager to be wings. Chaplain Melovian walks before them, swinging the crozius he keeps locked except on those days, and carrying the lantern for the last time. He chants the vision of the angel's fall in a voice that cracks at Father and holds there. I have marched beside them twice. In both processions I felt the universe tip subtly, like the deck of a ship turning toward home. We told ourselves they would return from the brink by spending themselves on the enemy, as if blood could solve algebra. Sometimes one came back, eyes clearing in the last second like clouds. More often they burned out mid-flight, and the chaplain called their names into the smoke, as if smoke were a door. The night Enoch joined them. In my memory I let him join, though he was alone. We planted our swords in the deck for the vigil of 5. 5 minutes of silence, while the ship thrummed hymns beneath our boots. At the 5th minute, all the blades shivered. Raphaniel said the ship approved. I have never envied any man less and admired any man more than the Death Company, the Saint of Ruins. On Sphere 9th there stands, or stood, a basilica raised by a hive-born mason who had never seen the sky. He built spires like ladders and stained glass like songs. Every wall carried a fresco of victory. Every victory contained a wound painted so well the wound bled when you knelt close. We were sent to break a siege. The heretics had brought engines shaped like catechisms turned inside out. Their projectiles recited scripture backward when they landed. People went blind from listening. A girl met us in the undercroft. She wore a robe of ashes and a coronet of iron nails nailed through. She said she was a saint. Her eyes were exhausted, which is the only honest sign of sainthood I have ever found. She asked me to carry a reliquary to the altar. It contained 3 teeth, human, canine, unknown, and a lock of hair that refused to burn. I carried it. My hands felt lighter with the weight. Halfway up the nave, I looked back. She watched me from the arch's shadow and lifted 2 fingers in benediction or farewell. The next shell took the western transept and half the believers in it. When we made it to the altar, the reliquary hummed like a throat. Raphaniel bowed his head before there was anyone left to see and said, "Grace, even this far out." We won that day by holding long enough for the skyhammer to finish its orbit. The basilica fell an hour after. Sometimes structures wait for their people to leave before they collapse. I do not know if the girl survived. The idea of her does. In war, ideas are our only children. The painter and the tyrant. The tyrant of Cassia Prime kept a gallery of the defeated, each portrait painted by the subject's own hand under threat. We were told to collapse his palace with pinpoint melter charges. We found the gallery first. There was a canvas waiting for us, a primed rectangle, a brush set, pigments mixed the color of shame. A mirror stood beside it. "One of you paint or I vent this wing of the palace," the tyrant said over Vox, his voice properly amused. "Which angel makes art?" Raphaniel looked at me. I looked at my hands. I had not painted since the unfinished face of our father refused me. But a refusal is not always a denial. I painted the tyrant. Not his features. Those were unremarkable, the symmetry of an accountant. I painted his memory. Rooms filled with laughter that was performed, not felt. Gardens trimmed into obedience. A child he never held. I titled it Vanity Counting to Zero. When I stepped back, the mirror beside the canvas shattered into dust too fine to see. The tyrant began screaming. He screamed through the bomb run. He was still screaming when the palace sank into its foundations like a tired giant. The painting hangs in the Crimson Oaths chapter gallery, now under a black cloth. Sometimes on watch I unwrap it and remind myself that beauty can accuse. Fault lines. Our fractures became fault lines during the Akarit drift actions. 3 strike forces, 6 weeks of ambush and answer. Vox tides so thick they felt like weather. Brother Idera, priest by rank and skeptic by habit, told me in the Apothecarian. Aurelian, the gene song is pitching sharp. The boys wake thirsty. The old ones dream too loud. He offered extra drafts of the Red Grail. Raphaniel refused for the line, "We do not drink to forget, we drink to remember correctly." Melovian said nothing, and added an extra candle to the chapel for every man who flinched at the sound of his own heart. One night, if nights exist in a debris field, our whole deck woke to singing from Bay 12. Death Company. No deployment, no order, just men in black singing the lament of the host in perfect unison. When we forced the blast door, the bay was empty and smelled of rain. We never found their names on the muster. I began to keep mine written inside my palm in Medici ink. When I washed, it faded to a ghost. We are all ghosts rehearsing our vanishing, the world that became a wound. And so we came to this world, the one whose name I still refuse, because I will not give it a tombstone in my mouth. Call it Cytherea's fall if you need a name. The soil itself feels like failure. Astropathic fragments promised a relic vault, a pilgrim city, a Xenos dig site, and redemption if we hurried. That should have warned us. Redemption is always a deadline. By the time we burned through the atmosphere, the city was a spent candle, and the vault a rumor held inside screams. We deployed in 3 prongs, Raphaniel's spear to the vault's coordinates, Melovian and the Death Company to the pilgrim hives to draw off the carrion lords feasting there, a reserve under me to hold the drop zone until the Oath could re-establish orbit after a storm of debris scraped her shields. The enemy was twofold, chaos mortals in rag shroud and crude plate, and something beneath the ground that hated sunlight. We fought men in the open and shadows in the doorways. The shadows bled sand that caught fire where it fell. I learned new ways to pray that mostly sounded like counting. 3 shots, breath, step. 3 shots, breath, step. The Vox never settled. We heard the lantern, Melovian's, through half the day. Its chime coded into the channel like a heartbeat. Then an hour of silence. Then the Death Company's hymn blooming over every band at once, too loud to be local. I think the planet itself sang with them. Plates shifting, air thinning, a horizon redder than it had any right to be. By the time we reached the vault site, there was only crater and white glass. In the center stood a single column of black stone the shape of a blade that forgot its wielder. Raphaniel ran his gauntlet along it. Sparks leapt backward. "Not for us," he said. The first artillery fusillade took Brother Seth and both men to my left. The second broke the ridge above, and the ridge fell on us as if invited. We fell back by inches, then by memory, then by the stubbornness that is the only virtue the galaxy rewards. In the retreat, Raphaniel went down. His chestplate flowered open. Inside the petals, I saw candlelight. He smiled and said, "Close their eyes." I am still closing them. The narrow place. A battle always narrows to a place you can name. Here, it is this culvert under a broken aqueduct, where water once taught stone to be kind. The culvert smells of rust and wet dust and the sweet sour of promethium. My vox ticks like a tired heart. I have stacked my dead in a priest's neatness, Raphaniel nearest my hand, then Idera, then three I cannot name because names are a luxury, and luxuries are for the living. The enemy does not come. Perhaps they think me finished. Perhaps they are correct. The red thirst presses against my teeth, patient. It would be so easy to drink the last drops in Raphaniel's lungs. I bite my tongue and make more of me spill instead. I have stripped my armor's heraldry to the primer. Nothing gleams now except solace, and even she is matte with ruin. The pommel holds the old shard Thassus saved. I rub it with my thumb until the sensation returns. I speak because silence is a door the wrong thing might walk through. Letters to the future, unsent. If a neophyte reads this, you are not your hunger. You are the hand that places it on a leash. Do not burn the leash to warm yourself. You will be cold the next night. If a mortal reads this, when angels arrive, do not kneel because you are commanded to. Kneel because you choose to surrender your fear to someone who might deserve it. If they do not deserve it, rise. Even we can be warned. If a foe reads this, I forgive you nothing, but I will close your eyes. If my father reads this, my Primarch or the man who died on bail so I could live, I tried to make my death look like grace. The visitations. The dying see things. Some are memory, some are mirrors angled oddly. Some are true visitors with dust on their boots. I saw Melovian a little while ago, or the shadow of him a lantern could cast. He stood beyond the culvert's lip where the sun knifes the dust into gold and said, "I have room for one more hymn." I told him my voice is broken. He said, "Then whisper and I will make it loud." When I looked again, the light had shifted and the voice had become wind. I saw Sanguinius as I saw him at the viewport. Wings folded, sorrow like a crown. But this time he looked older, as if time touches even saints when they stand too long in our world. He did not speak. He reached, took my free hand in both of his, and held it with a pressure I felt in marrow. Somewhere deep, something unclenched that had not relaxed since the day I first killed a man who begged. I saw myself as I might have been had I not ascended. Thin, tired, tending a still on Bale's outskirts, whittling wood into birds. He looked happy enough. He had all his teeth. He did not look up as the vision closed. I hope it is because he did not need to. The enemy finally comes. Footfalls in the dust. 3, 5, 7. The cadence of men who do not trust each other quite enough to stay close. I shut down the vox. I sheath solace because drawing is music, and music invites an audience. I count their breaths. One quick, one deep, one shallow with a hitch. The hitch belongs to a boy who has not killed enough to sleep through it. They pass the culvert mouth, careful as thieves in an empty house. I rise between breaths 2 and 3. My jump pack stutters, but gives me a hand's width of lift. I land behind the last, and put a knife where his prayer would begin. He folds like a compliment. The next turns, mouth open to shape my death into a word. I give him another word, steel, and the sentence ends on a period of red. The third runs. I let him, because someone must tell their commander that angels still haunt narrow places. I drag the bodies inside to join the others. I close their eyes. One is green with youth. One is scarred in the shape of poor choices. One has a tattoo of a name across his heart. I touch the tattoo with 2 fingers and say, he died fast. It is the only kindness left to give. A map of scars. While I wait for the counterattack that may not come, I inventory what remains. Left thigh, a seam where a devil from Gathrax deep nearly unlegged me. Right shoulder, Enoch's playful shove that drove me into a bulkhead on a day with laughter. Across the ribs, a lash of lightning from a sorcerer whose mouth was full of bees. Over the heart, the tear I painted, repainted, painted again every time we won too thoroughly. Inside the skull, places I do not enter without Malovian's lantern. I think of Baal. The dust there is finer and cleaner than this world's, and it tastes like secrets the planet keeps kindly. We ran as children across flats that used to be oceans, pretending the bones of leviathans were mountains. We threw red stones at a sun that refused to dim. Sometimes, if I tilt my head, I hear my brother laugh. Not a battle brother. A boy who shared a crust and a dream of leaving. He did not leave. I took his dream and never returned it. If I live long enough to be interred in a sarcophagus, and I will not, someone will read these scars and call me veteran. I prefer map. The promise I make to no one. If anyone finds Raphaniel's body, bring him home. Let the sanguinary guard lay him in the Hall of Suns with his helm on his chest and his hands folded as if prayer were resting. Hang his lantern over the bier. Tell the neophytes he laughed at the right moments and frowned when the day needed it. Tell them he said we were meant to look like grace when we bled. Most of all, tell them he was not ashamed to be kind. If anyone finds mine, do not waste a ship's room or a priest's hour. Take solace for a brother who sings in close quarters. Take the shard in her pommel and give it to a boy before his first drop with this. What enters you isn't always yours to keep. As for me, let the red dirt have me. Let the wind write my name wrong until it forgets me. The galaxy is lighter by one weight. Do not urge it to lift me again. A quiet benediction. The sun lowers, or the dust thickens. Either way, the light has gone from white to wine. I set the lantern, Malovian's or its echo, on the culvert's lip and watch it invent a circle of gold where none belongs. I speak the words he taught us, low, for myself and for the ones whose eyes no longer need closing. Guide us through the narrow place. Let our hunger shame us into sharing. Make our ending look like a beginning to someone who needs it. Winged Father, far and near, if you must break us beautifully. The wind answers by being gentler than it has any reason to be. Interlude. The memory that won't heal. There was a battle whose name I forget because the world deserved anonymity. A sergeant from the Astra Militarum, grey hair, the set jaw of survivors, stopped me after the rout and asked for a blessing. He knelt. I touched his brow plate. I began the standard lexicon, service, sacrifice, emperor's light, etc. He interrupted, looking up with eyes that had already seen what mine refused to. Sir Angel, he said, awkward with reverence he didn't trust. Will it have been worth it? I told him the truth that day. Yes, I said, if we decide so. He laughed until he cried. He went back to his unit. He died a week later from a cough the medici called minor until it wasn't. I do not know if he decided. The long breath before the last. My heart's tire. They are old engines in a good chassis, and I have asked too much of them. The autoimmune dampeners have long since drained. The stims are a memory. The pain returns as color instead of shape. I am grateful for that. Shapes stab, color wraps. I think of all the times we descended with wings of fire and believed it meant we were welcome. We are not. We are necessary. Necessity is colder than welcome, but steadier. A man can live in it longer. I have enough vox to speak a little more, enough ink to stain a few more pages of air. After that, I will listen to the dust for messages from brothers who did not know how to leave. If any of you are listening, any of you at all, know this. I was proud, not of killing, though I did much, not of surviving, though I did that past the time decency suggested. I was proud of the moments between, when we shared water, when we held the lantern for each other, when we painted wings on bullets because the idea of flight is contagious. I am proud of you for reading this far. It means you carry light. Vox record continues. Battery level 11%. Oxygen mix 41%. Lingual filter overheated. The sky that forgot its color. Something moves above. A sky is supposed to mean direction, but this one no longer knows how. The orbital shelling has burned out the blue, leaving layers of smoke the color of bruised fruit. Occasionally lightning forks sideways, tasting the ash. Each flash reminds me that the stars are still there, only exiled from sight. The wind drags my banner half buried in grit. The cloth has melted into glass along its hem. I can see my reflection in its sheen, half helm, half ruin. If art were honest, it would look like this. I remember a time when this world was alive. Farmers tending silver wheat. Children running through irrigation dust, pretending to be angels. When our drop pods came, they ran toward the sound, believing we were saviors. Now the only motion is smoke learning to crawl. The Vox ghosts. Every few minutes, the Vox coughs up fragments of voices. Static, then words distorted through distance. Melovian to second, hold. The blood still sings. For the host, for. Sometimes I answer. Sometimes I just listen. Once, I swear I heard Enoch humming the same lullaby Ison used to hum while cleaning his bolter. It lasted 7 seconds before the signal collapsed into a shriek. I think the Vox ghosts are real. Not souls. Souls do not use transmitters. Echoes. The machine spirit playing back courage to itself so it will not go insane. I let it. Even angels need background noise when the silence starts talking. The second wave. They came back at dusk. 5 tanks, maybe 6, hulls stitched from scavenged armor, daubed with 8-pointed stars that flaked in the heat. Infantry walked beside them, chanting a language built from numbers and screams. I had 9 grenades, 1 melter charge, and a faith that was starting to forget its own verses. When the first shell hit the culvert, the shockwave rolled through my bones like an organ note. I fired the melter at the lead tank's tread. It turned liquid and folded in on itself. The explosion painted the others in fire. For a moment they looked like saints ascending. Then the fire went out and they were just metal again. The infantry came anyway. I knelt, switched to semi-automatic, and began to write their obituaries in bolts of light. Every shot felt like punctuation. Commas for the hesitant. Periods for the devout. The thirst rose again. I tasted their panic in the air, salt and adrenaline, and my fangs ached behind the helmet. I bit my tongue until the taste of my own blood drowned theirs. A small victory, not noble, but clean. The black wings return. When the ammunition ran dry, I heard jump engines. For a heartbeat, I thought it was the foe's aerials. Then the sound resolved into a pattern every son of Baal knows, the staggered rhythm of the death company. They fell from the smoke like ink poured into water. Black armor, crimson tears painted on their helms, Crozius arcs flashing as thunder in close air. At their front, yes, Malovian, his lantern lit, its glass cracked but still burning with gold. They landed amid the heretics with a grace that mocked gravity. Chainswords screamed theology. Meltigans sang heresy in reverse. Each brother moved as if rehearsing a dance older than reason. Malovian's vox flooded every channel. By the blood and by the dream, we are his memory given shape. I tried to rise. My servos howled. I made it to one knee. The lantern's glow swept over me, warm, forgiving. He saw me. I know he did. For a moment his voice softened. Brother Aurelian, keep the light. Then he turned and charged into the tanks. The explosion that followed shook the desert into a new geography. When the fire cleared, the death company was gone. Only black feathers drifted down, too heavy to be feathers, too light to be debris. They dissolved when they touched the ground. The Red Grail. I crawled to what was left of the battlefield. Among the twisted armor plates, I found an ampulla intact, the glass vessel that once held the Red Grail's draught. A thin ribbon of crimson still clung to its curve, shining under a dead sun. I thought of Thassus, of Idera, of Seph, who never filled it full. I remembered how the blood burned going down, how it sang inside the veins like a choir finding its key. The thirst whispered, "One drop, and the pain ends. One drop and you will fight again. One drop and you can finish their song." It was convincing. All temptation sounds reasonable when phrased as duty. I held the ampulla to my lips, stopped. The glass reflected me back. A face cracked, eyes pale gold gone grey, mouth trembling. Behind that reflection, I saw Sanguinius, not angry, just disappointed. I lowered the ampulla and poured the last of the blood into the soil. The earth hissed and turned a deeper red. "Drink, Father," I said. "You need it more." For the first time since Bowl, the thirst subsided. The silence after faith. No enemy remained. Only the wounded world itself, breathing shallow through fumes. I sat among the corpses of the death company and listened for the chaplain's lantern. The chime was gone. Perhaps he carried it beyond hearing. Without the noise of battle, other sounds emerged. Metal cooling, insects returning, the slow collapse of buildings remembering gravity. My armor creaked like an old man's knees. The planet exhaled. I spoke aloud to keep the silence from becoming a god. "My brothers," I said, "if there is any justice left, let it not find us. We would only break it." A wind answered, soft but persistent, carrying flecks of ash that glowed faintly before dying. I pretended they were stars. Memories that do not fade. The mind plays tricks when it knows the end. It opens doors long sealed. I am back on Baal, beneath the crimson moons. The training fields hum with the voices of recruits. Chaplain Retor drills us in blade forms, shouting, "Precision is devotion, every cut a verse." Sweat turns to rust on my skin. I am half child, half machine in the making. At dusk, we gather around the statue of Sanguinius. Someone, perhaps me, perhaps Raphaniel, asks why our father must look so sad. The chaplain answers, "Because he saw the best in us and could not unsee it." I remember thinking that sadness was proof of divinity. Now I think it was the most human part of him. The vision fades. The world returns to ash and smoke, but the sadness stays. It fits me like armor. The angel in the fire. I feel fever rising. Systems shutting down one by one. Vision doubling. There is light in the distance, too steady to be flame. It walks closer on wings that rustle like paper. For a moment, I think it is another hallucination. Then it speaks my name, my first name, Cassiel, in a tone that vibrates through the broken vox directly into the bone. You listened. Sanguinius stands before me. His wings are torn at the edges, feathers tipped in soot. He kneels so our eyes meet. You did not drink, he says. That is enough. I want to tell him everything, the fear, the failure, the beauty I tried to defend. But words fail in the throat. He touches 2 fingers to my helm, and the circuits flare golden for a breath. Images flood me. Bale restored, brothers laughing, Malovian's lantern burning on a calm sea, Raphaniel painting with sunlight. Then the light folds inward until all that remains is his voice. Rest. The galaxy will remember art, not victory. When he vanishes, the dust settles as if bowing. The last duty. There is one thing left. I reach for solace, plant her blade in the ground beside Raphaniel's body, and rest my helm against the hilt. Our chapter's code demands retrieval of progenoids, but there is no one left to take them. So I speak the right myself. Blood to blood, memory to memory. Let what was given return clean. I drive the point of my combat knife into the gene pod at my chest, crack the seal. A hiss of air, a bloom of warmth. It feels like confession. The pain is honest. I welcome it. When the bleeding slows, I look to the horizon. The storm is moving away, carrying the smoke of the dead like incense. For the first time in a century, I think I can see a star. Closing entry. Autodiagnostic. Life functions critical. The vox trembles, but I have enough power for a final message. To whomever finds this record, tell them we were not perfect. Tell them we tried to make beauty out of violence, and sometimes succeeded. Tell them an angel died without tasting the blood. Tell them that was victory enough. The battery fades. My voice will soon break into static. If the machine spirit of this helm remembers me, let it dream kindly. If not, let the wind carry my words across the dunes until they wear down to silence. Be kind, I whisper to the void, and be terrible, in that order. Vox record termination 00:08:19. Afterword, apothecary's report. Recovered from coordinates 44.23 degrees north, 17.92 degrees east. Manufactorum ruin Sigma 9. Subject: Brother Aurelian, Second Company, Blood Angels. Progenoid status: left, viable, right, ruptured. Personal effects: blade solace, embedded upright in soil. Helm recorder, active. Ampulla empty, residue present. Lantern fragment emitting low-frequency hum. Cause of death: exsanguination, secondary to self-extraction protocol. Expression: peaceful, filed under Reclusium archive. 9a. Elegy of Red Dust. The final journal of Brother Aurelian, 9th Legion Gene Line. Part 5. Apotheosis of Dust. Archive access granted. Data log 1,000 years later. Source: The Crimson Oath. Chapter Reliquary. Vox Memory Sigma 9. Subject: The Testament of Brother Aurelian. The Resurrection of Voices. There are certain recordings that do not decay. Most fade, Machine spirits tire, magnetic cores erode, but some linger, as if the data itself refuses dissolution. This is one of them. For 971 years, the Vox record lay entombed in sand on a nameless world charted only as Cytherea's fall. When the Crimson Oath returned, guided by an augury that no living navigator claimed to have plotted, the signal rose unbidden on every channel. A steady, slow pulse that sounded like a heartbeat too large for human scale. They found the helm half buried in red glass. When powered, it spoke not static, but a man's voice, soft, deliberate, reverent, like prayer disguised as testimony. "If you are listening," the voice said, "then perhaps art survived us after all." The archivists listened. They heard his story from beginning to end, his battles, his doubts, the death of Raphaniel, the lantern's light. They copied the data thrice, sanctified the Vox core, and carried it into the fortress monastery. Some said it should be sealed as a relic. Others said it should be erased for heresy. In the end, the chapter master decided both could be true. The philosophy of red dust. Theologians of Baal Secundus now teach a quiet doctrine. Every act of beauty is an act of resistance. They attribute it to anonymous authorship, though we all know whose words formed the seed. It circulates among serfs, artists, even tech marines, an unspoken counterpoint to the ecclesiarchy's thunder. When questioned, the blood angels merely smile. Some of the most fervent recite Aurelian's last benediction before entering the black rage cages. "If you must break us beautifully." Those who die under that phrase do not scream, they sing. The Eternal Choir. There is a legend whispered among astropaths who relay the Astronomican's pulse, that beneath the constant psychic beacon of the Emperor's will, there is another rhythm. A counter-hum, faint but pure, carried on the same frequency. A song too soft for machines, too structured to be random. They call it the angelic counterpoint. The Adeptus Astra Telepathica dismisses it as interference, but one blind choir savant, before her mind burned out, described what she heard. 1,000 voices reciting the same word over and over. The word is light. If she was right, then perhaps Brother Aurelian never stopped speaking. Perhaps his voice joined that hidden choir, the one that sings when we fall silent. The return of the lantern. 3 centuries after the discovery of his helm, during the defense of Baal against the Tyranids, a sanguinary priest named Seraphane fell in the catacombs beneath Angel's Fall. When the swarm receded, search teams found his body surrounded by burned xenos, the lantern of Melovian glowing in his hand. Inside the flame, etched by heat, was a phrase none had inscribed. The light kept its promise. The artifact still burns in the reclusiam. Its brightness never dims, and sometimes, if you stare long enough, you see a figure reflected in the glass, armor cracked, eyes serene, Aurelian, waiting. Or perhaps just the idea of him, which is close enough to truth. The final integration. By decree of the chapter master, the Vox core of the Testament was merged into the ship's noospheric cogitator. Its words now circulate through the Crimson Oath systems, whispering in binary hymns. Tech Marines report that the engines hum smoother, the reactors run cooler, and the ship's machine spirit responds to prayer faster than before. When questioned, one engine seer replied, "It listens because one of us is already inside, still talking to it." In a way, Brother Aurelian became what he always sought, a bridge between flesh and meaning, between creation and memory. He is the ghost that oils the gears. He is the art that moves the weapon. He is the proof that devotion and doubt can share the same armor.